So good afternoon. PRC-Saltillo is excited to offer this guest presentation, Practical Training and Funding Ideas for Staff and Parents of AAC Users. My name is Lisa Tim, and I am the Implementation and Training Manager at PRC-Saltillo. I will be your moderator. Our presenters are Tara Wineinger and Elisa Parker. Tara has spent 25 years in special education. Tara has always been involved in assistive technology, but the last 7 years it has been a full-time position as the assistive technology facilitator in the Park Hill School District. Her prior experiences include special education teacher for grades K through 12, self-contained and resource, process coordinator for 5 years, a diagnostic coordinator for 5 years. She has also presented at Closing the Gap and assisted with moderating a Metro AT group in the Kansas City metropolitan area. Tara serves on the Sophie's Run board, which is a nonprofit organization that provides assistive technology to individuals in the Park Hill School District. Elisa is the Autism and Assistive Technology Consultant for the Gerner Family Early Education Center in the Park Hill School District in Kansas City, Missouri. She began her 23-year career as a speech-language pathologist in this very same program. Elisa provides consultative services and training to parents, staff, and various organizations within the Kansas City area. She serves on Sophie's Run board as well. Next slide. And then I'll turn this over to the presenters. Thank you.
All right, thank you for letting us come on and talk to you today. We want to start with a poll. We kind of want to get a feel for who we're talking to today. And while you're doing that first poll and Lisa launches it, we want to say Happy Cinco de Mayo to everyone. And I hope that after this is over, everybody has fun plans. Looks like we have a lot of SLPs. All right, I have a parent, I got a teacher. Oh, and I've got some other specialists, AT specialists, OTPT. That's great. Okay. All right, so as Lisa told you, I am a special education teacher by trade, and Elisa is an SLP. We've been doing assistive technology together, Lisa, 10 or 11 years, I think, in the Park Hill School District. So we had a webinar about a year ago, and we did literacy and AAC, and at the end of that, we were asked by the attendees if we would continue and do a webinar on our trainings that we do and our funding sources. So that's what we're going to talk with you all about today. We're going to look at the trainings that we do for teachers, for families, and then we're going to look at our funding sources. So before we get started, I always want to know when I'm attending any type of training is what does that professional school district look like, or their environment? So our school district is about 12,000 students, K through 12. We have about 20 buildings, and collectively we probably have approximately 150 students utilizing some form of AAC on a daily basis. You can see our demographics on our early childhood setup. They have about 6 speech pathologists. And then if you come over to the K-12 side, you can see the groupings that we have. I actually just got word we are expanding, so we will have 2 more self-contained classrooms next year. So we'll be at 18 self-contained teachers, and we have 17 speech pathologists on the K-12 side. So we have a lot of staff. Okay.
All right, next slide is me. So we found over the years, again, I've been in Park Hill for a long time, and we've obviously grown over the years as far as the amount of students that we're seeing. Overall, our population has grown, and with that becomes more kids with AT. And fortunately, our technology has changed so much that we're able to offer so many different varieties of supports and strategies with all of the technology that's now available. But what we found over the years is that there were pockets of individuals who really felt comfortable using AAC and trialing devices and the implementation, but it would fade off. So if we had a kiddo in early childhood who did really well, and then they moved on to kindergarten, and it happened to be in a building where that team just hadn't had any experience with AAC or just didn't feel really comfortable in facilitating that, we would kind of find a lull in that student's progress. So our goal and our vision over the last 10 to 12 years actually is to be able to have our whole special education staff and our buildings supporting those students have a foundation for implementing AAC in those buildings. And so that's where we started. We were fortunate enough at the time to have a special education director, and still do have another special education director, who believes in this vision of consistency and support and advocating for our kids who needed AAC specifically and AT in general. So we were able to come up and plan with that special education director, identify those goals and the priorities that we needed for our staff to be able to move forward. Fortunately, around that time, we also were able to build an assistive technology library for our school, and later we'll talk a little bit about that with a nonprofit organization that we have in our community called Sophie's Run. And that just happened to happen around the same time that we were building this foundation for our district in general. So that was a beautiful marriage of nonprofit and our school district coming full force together at the same time. We also we had a shift in a special education director right after that, and he also believed in that, being able to support our students' needs. And he was able to provide our K through 12 staff, our specialized teachers and our SLPs or OTs and our PT for the district with their own iPads. So not only could they have instructional technology on those iPads, but also we would put in the AAC app or any kind of AAC type of application that we wanted to trial with our students. They also had access to that app in a way for them to learn the vocabulary and for them to practice it. It's a way for them to use aided language with our students. And sometimes it was a backup for some of our students if a device was forgotten at home. So, and still is. So we do have those expectations in place that those iPads are used for those purposes in addition to instructional technology, just depending on what their focus is. So again, in early childhood, we didn't have that ability at that time to have those iPads. So we found other sources such as Donors Choose or our own Education Foundation grant to support that as well. So after that, we were able to develop an assistive technology library checkout system, and we developed a process for that. What does a short-term and a long-term checkout system look like? What kind of data collection did you need to have along with that? Over time, I think now we don't have a lot of short-term checkouts. We have a lot more long-term, and we have lots of different technology just at our fingertips, so we're able to do a lot more. We also, during this time, we were using a lot of Missouri Assistive Technology. That's an organization in Missouri that we're able to check out devices for trial as well and on a short-term basis. And so we still access those when we're looking at new technology as well. And obviously, PRC-Saltillo is a group that we use a lot in helping us support our students and trialing new devices. So the next part was building our credibility. And so looking at that, that would include how do we get these people on board and saying this really needs to happen? How do we inspire our staff and encourage them that we're on the right track? And so what we did was we looked at our professional development day and right before school started a few years back. And so again, that's when everyone's fresh and engaged and ready to start something new. It's really hard to start something new in February and March, and people are kind of done by that time. So starting at the beginning of the year is really helpful, obviously, for starting and planning and programming. So we launched an initiative, a district-wide initiative at that time, and we had our Saltillo representative, Betsy Clifford. She came in and did a training for our staff. And people that were involved in that training were our essential skills teachers, our autism teachers, K through 12, our SLPs, our OTs, and our PTs, those same people who were getting those iPads for tools for instructional technology, they were expected to come and have those applications ready to use and learn how to use AAC in their environments. We also included our early childhood special education staff as well, and they were at that time fortunate enough to share iPads and things with us, so we could learn along with the rest of the district as well. So during this time in that district-wide initiative, we were able to work with our staff on what is that common language that we're trying to build, and what are those common expectations that we want all of our buildings to have. And again, this is something we have to readdress a lot because we have new staff that comes in every year. And so, you know, that's another piece of this, is kind of that resetting and reframing and restructuring, and how do we empower our staff that have been here for a while to help facilitate our newer staff and supporting them and making things work. And so we're always reinventing ourselves, not only Tara and I, but our staff as well.
Okay, so as Elisa shared with you, we developed our common foundation. We did our initial big training in August, and we sent those teachers out into the classrooms, and Elisa and I and others were really excited that we had set up AAC to be implemented everywhere. Well, imagine it didn't go as planned. So we had teachers contacting us saying that they were having struggles. So we realized real quick that one of the most effective types of trainings we could do was to go and be in the classrooms. Both of our positions allow us the time and flexibility to move about buildings and work directly with students and staff. So we were going in, working in classrooms, making those observations in class, but also in therapy sessions, helping the OTs, PTs, and speech pathologists in pullouts. Then we would talk to them, listen to what their concerns were, and based around their concerns, we would identify mini trainings that needed to occur in those buildings, specific to those staff members, their needs, the students' needs. We realized real quickly that we had been doing all these trainings and talking to teachers about modeling, using aided language, all of those basic fundamental building blocks, but that we needed to do that. We needed to walk the walk, talk the talk, work in the trenches with them, and that was one of the most effective training sessions we could do, is to work with a group like that. And then as we listened to the staff and saw their needs and their areas of concerns, for me, it became real obvious that modeling is not something that everyone is comfortable with. Modeling is something that everybody needs to learn how to do some form of it, but some teachers were resistant just because they were fearful. So if I would go and work in the buildings with classrooms, it helped. Then we would sometimes have mini coaching sessions where we'd have maybe a teaching assistant who was having a specific struggle. I would pull time and coach them through, revisit with them. Then we would help teachers with what resources do they need. We use Google Drive a lot for training sessions. We make videos like this. We put resources, links, all in a Google Drive, so all staff have the same resources. I do a lot of emails. I try to keep them to monthly, where we send out resource videos, positive pictures, sharing what positive things staff are doing after we've done these trainings. What are you doing right? Because it might spark an idea from one building to another, one grade level to another, but it also helps when we transition kids year to year, that a middle school teacher can see what a child was doing. And as you know, we all live looking at pictures now. And there is a lot to be said about a short video or a picture that we can share to show successes. And then if I knew that we had a speech pathologist who was having a particular struggle with a type of AAC, an implementation, goal writing, whatever it may be, if I wasn't feeling like I was meeting that need, I would connect them with a colleague in another building that was having success, a colleague who maybe would have worked with that child before, because hearing from your own discipline is sometimes very helpful, and then you speak a different language. So I would make those connections as well. In doing all of this over the years, we work real hard to make sure we're catching staff doing things right. We don't want to harp on what we would like to see improvements on. That's what we save our big trainings for. But catch them doing things right, and then reward them. We provide flip books. I do sonic drinks sometimes for staff who are doing things correctly. We also, at early childhood, I know that they've done something where they're catching them in the act during AAC Awareness Month. And the picture that you see here is a reward for what Elisa caught a staff member doing, and she was able to provide one of the large boards for her classroom. And then you can, I don't know if you can see it, but there's a child holding one of the small flip books, and we print those and we make those and we give those to staff as little tokens of appreciation for what they are doing. And then the last type of mini training that we did was after a couple of years, we realized that the students go to art, music, PE, library, all those specials. And if you have kids going into those specials and they're taking AAC, and you saw we have 150 kids in our district using some form, those teachers also needed training. That 50 minutes once a week in those classes, if the instructor doesn't know how to support the students, things were failing. It was a place that we recognized we had breakdown. So we started doing training for those people as well as parents as teachers. And by taking the time to get all of the staff on board, the AAC really grew. We don't have very many situations anymore where kids go places without AAC because everybody's been trained. It still happens, but by spreading out our training across the entire environment, less of those opportunities occur. And then the last thing I would say we do is we try to revisit topics frequently, whether it be through email, video, or additional trainings.
Okay, so where does the time come from as far as when do we have these trainings occur? Where do we take that time? So a lot of it, we do try to hit something at the beginning of the school year, as long as professional development allows it, but planning ahead with your school district, way back in the spring, way back in January, as they're planning out for the next school year, it's a good time to reach out to your special education director or your principal about having that happen. And then talking about, we also use at early childhood, we have about 1 day a week where we do not have students. So that's a great time for us to do some more mini professional development times for individual staff or whole group staff at our level. We also look at we have usually morning and afternoon sessions. So there's usually an hour in between our morning and our afternoon and our morning sessions. So we're able to take a little bit of time there if we need to do any catch up or any programming and planning and supporting and talking about strategies. We've been able to use that time as well. And then like we talked about just modeling the application of AAC strategies and supports in the classroom. Sometimes I feel like I don't get to do that enough, but it is really powerful when you do take the time to do that. It can make the difference for a teacher. That happened last year with one of my teachers, and it was a light bulb moment. We'd had lots of discussions and talking about how to use it, but it took me going into the classroom with her to help support her, and then it was a light bulb moment for her. She figured it out. So, and then as far as on the elementary side, they have early release time for elementary. And so that's been a great time because not only is it a specific building, but all of those specialized programs meet together for their training at least once a month. So it's a great time to use our training for that purpose. And then also there's been some optional evening opportunities as well that have been offered to our staff.
Okay, so some of the same opportunities exist for middle school and high school, as you can see listed here. One of the things we found at our middle school and high school is they really needed the modeling. Those were the staff who we saw AAC dropping as students moved towards middle school and high school, and they really needed someone to be in the trenches with them, showing them how it would be done. So that's what we did for many years. And then since then, we focus a lot more at the middle school on before and after school. Middle school doesn't have as many early release or professional development days in our district, although we've learned that that's changing and they're going to have an early release. So we're excited to have those 4 times a year with staff there. And then In the high school, one of the other places we started going was out on community-based instruction. And going out on community-based instruction allowed us to not only support staff, but support our community. Because if you have hundreds of children with communication devices, you can imagine how your community is influenced. So it was a valuable time for us. And then again, the evening trainings that we offer for staff to come in for additional PD.
One of the beautiful things too is we have, I don't know actually how much it was used this year, but we have a home that our specialized programs, high school come over, and they practice life skills. They do the laundry, they do the vacuuming, they cook meals. So that was an opportunity. I was actually, because it was right next door to where I worked, going over there and helping them facilitate, I need some pledge, or I need help, or what do you want to eat, and being able to use more of that social language during their daily routines and kind of again, a mock environment, but helping support them in language that they can use as a life skill. Oops, where are we next? I lost my slide.
Lessons learned.
Lessons learned. Okay, so lessons learned. So some of the things we found out that our teachers, they did a great job of doing the AAC during more of those structured, repeated times. So it might be like a morning meeting time or a hello time. And so that was a great place for them to start, because the expectations, they knew what the vocabulary would be the same every day. The students knew the vocabulary would be the same every day. And so that was a great time to get that going. But now that they're comfortable with that and they know what the vocabulary looks like and they know how to use the aided language, what's the next focus? And so that's how, we looked at what our staff was doing, observing them in the classroom, seeing how they reported what they were doing in the classroom during our team meetings and our professional development times. And so our next focus was really looking at that social language and play at all levels. And so, early on and early childhood, that looks more like pretend play and just, playing a game of catch with a baseball or a bouncy ball, right? Or swinging on the swing, and what kind of language you would need, all the way up to a specific structured gameplay. And we went even into more things like that were more technology based as well in some of our trainings, which is kind of fun. So some of the lessons learned along with that then is, again, just to have fun, inspire the staff to want to come to PD. Just like we want our kids to communicate, we want them to be motivated and want it to be engaging and fun for them. We need the same thing for our staff. So we do our best to make that happen, especially as we've moved on through the years. We've learned how important that is. And also including your TAs in those trainings as much as you can, as much as your staff allows it. Our special education director has allowed us to do some evening trainings or before school trainings, and we'll pay our TAs the additional time to do that. It's not once a month or anything, but it can occur, especially if they're finding a gap where those TAs in that certain building or that level is not getting the support and the training that they need. That's something to ask for and something to advocate for. But not only those TAs, but also your custodian in your building and your office staff and your specials teachers. Like Tara had mentioned earlier, the custodian in our building does an amazing job of stopping the kids in the hall. I mean, he's a celebrity in our building, which I'm sure that's pretty similar in a lot of school buildings as well. So teaching them how to facilitate and ask questions and prompt or model or wait for a response from our students is really important. And it makes it more of a collaborative spirit and more of a community in our building. So the other piece about this is smaller groups. The larger the group, the less engagement you're going to have. So even if it was a larger group, we did our best to separate our groups out into smaller tables or maybe in different classrooms. That way there was more of a comfort level of working together and collaborating and planning and programming and just practicing the target AAC strategies that we had for a focus for whatever that specific training was. And that worked a lot better than just being fed the information. And also concrete examples. We try to use as many video examples of our kids in our district as we can. Again, that shows that there's relevance to this. It shows that there's staff in our building that it's working for across our district. And it's also, again, another way to showcase and empower the staff that is using AAC well and appropriately and having fun doing it with their students. So it's reinforcing to use videos that are from your students if you can.
I think it also, Elisa, don't you find when we use those concrete examples in our buildings, it kind of creates a little competition, and staff are like, well, if she can do it, I can do it. Yeah.
Well, how come you didn't pick my video? Like, that's pretty cool. I want to be the one on there now. So that is true. Yeah, that's a big thing as well. And oh, I'm going to add another piece to that, and we can see where we can go with this as well. It came that way as well with I feel like that with our game night, the activities that people were coming up with and developing, just the visual supports that came along with that. Well, what can I put together? So that's pretty fun as well. And then again, we talked about empowering, as the PRC slogan actually says in one of these slides. I think it's on slide 6. It says, empowering today, inspiring tomorrow. That is our goal, to not only empower and inspire our students, but our staff as well, and our parents. If it's only happening at school and not happening at home, then we haven't quite done our job. And I know that can be a challenge, but it's such a powerful thing once the parents are engaged and involved as well. And that's something we work towards, and we want to make that our goal, to make sure that everyone that's involved with that child has a chance to learn how to use the device, know what kind of vocabulary, what kind of interactions that they want to communicate with. So we want to take away that piece that's we're the expert. Tara and I are here to support, but we learn things every day from our staff, and from our parents and from our students. And it's our job to help support and coach them, but we really want to empower our team to do the implementation and just to make things better and more rich for our students. So that's
how about if we do another poll here?
Yeah.
I want to know from everybody here, where do you find time to fit in staff trainings? Same as what we've listed, or are there other ideas? Let's see, the poll's being distributed right now. Oh, we've got, most people say PD days, professional development days.
Awesome.
Before and after school, yeah. I know it's always hard. We're starting to plan our PD for next year right now. So we got to be way ahead of the game, and that gets hard.
Yeah. Oh, during the school day, 20%.
Yeah.
So it looks like 50% professional development days, 26% before and after school, 21% now for during the school day, and then other.
Yeah.
Cool.
All right. Well, we're about halfway through this session, so I'm going to go ahead and keep us moving, because I know we want to get to talking about the fundraising part of this. We want to talk about family trainings. We got staff trained, and then the next big accomplishment that Elisa and I identified as an area that the district needed to work on was getting our families trained so that they could support their AAC users when they came home. So we started doing trainings with what we thought would be families. And we were mainly identifying parents, but what we've learned is that we need to include parents, siblings, grandparents, any relative actually who wants to come and be involved. We welcome them to come. And then it kind of expanded, and we also now involve community organizations. We have many ABA providers around our school district, many different kinds, and they come to all of our trainings. And some people look at me like I'm crazy. Why do you do that? I'm like, because we want to train anyone who is supporting this child, so the child can grow at a faster rate. The more people around him who can support them, the better off we are. So we invite all of them, outside therapists. I've done some work with some church groups, and you can see these pictures. This top one is from what we just did. We did a game night called Inspire, Don't Require. And then the bottom picture are visuals that are navigation sequences or prompts. And we try to provide those things for these groups and families so that they can continue to support their AAC user.
And just one more thing to add on that with the ABA providers, that they're coming to these parent nights as well and family nights and things like that. But it's also happening that they're now reaching out, these providers are reaching out, okay, my whole staff wants to know more about AAC. So we're tailoring presentations and trainings for them as well, which has been really exciting to have that level of engagement and interest. It wasn't just one kid, but I want my whole staff to know more about AAC and implementation.
Okay.
Okay, so the next one is when do we get this done? So again, for the training, we're looking at availability during the school day, if that's possible for some of the parents, that's easier for them. We look at team meetings, we look at holiday parties. Sometimes that's a great time. We have, especially at early childhood, we have families that are coming in for the party, and we're able to show them what their kiddo can do and what they can comment on and what songs they like to ask for and engage with, and food that they ask for, and so forth, and things that they play and communication that they use around those skills. And so it's a great time to show off what they can do, and there's no pressure as far as the parents being able to perform and demonstrate what they need to know. But we also have family nights in our buildings too. We had one back in, I think it was February, and it was a showcase night. That's kind of a popular thing in our area, is to have a showcase night for our students to show what they can do in their class. And so our staff, each classroom had a different focus on what they wanted it to be. And one particular classroom had a lot of new AAC users. And so her focus was on her and her SLP. They focused on teaching the basics of the AAC implementation at home, and they did an amazing job. And I was in the back with one of our high school helpers. We were playing with the kids, modeling how to use their AAC device while they were playing with Play-Doh and puzzles and things. And then once they were done, the parents came back and they were able to become a part of that as well, and have a turn with their child doing the same activities that we were modeling too. And then we had some handouts too. Handouts and visuals for our families are a great opportunity too, because as soon as you walk away, it's great to have something actually physical to be able to reference. So we talked about family nights. We also have family resource nights that we've done district-wide that Tara has actually organized the last couple of years, 3 or 4 years, I think, for us. And so in your handout or in your Google link at the end with the resources, there will be a survey. It's a Google form that you guys can use to set up your trainings if you'd like to use that. And so that's a way we look at that needs assessment. We're looking at what are the families needing. And so within that survey, we can say, we just list some topics. So what do you want to cover? What do you need to know at home? What's the biggest area of concern for your child at home with AAC? And then also making sure that
I'm sorry, Lisa.
Oh, yeah, no, it's okay. Just that we're also always have food in childcare for those evening classrooms, those evening activities as well, because it's sometimes pretty hard to find childcare for some of our kids that have these kind of high needs.
So to build on what Elisa's been talking about, for about 4 years, we've been doing a family night. We've run it 2 different ways. Sometimes we run it like a conference, like any of us as professionals would go to a PD conference. And I send out a Google form and do a needs assessment and find out what the parents are needing the most right now. We've had our OTs do presentations on how to meet your child's sensory needs at home. We've done presentations from adult services. We had a financial planner come in and work with high school staff. And then one of the rotations is AAC as a whole group. And then we do breakouts depending on where students are and where parents are in their comfort level. So putting people in those comfort zones with their knowledge. But once we have it set up, there are a couple things that are really key if you're going to have a family training, and that is your space. You got to have enough space, because if you're going to host childcare, we learned right away that you need a big enough place for children. You need a quiet place and a play place, because if you're doing an evening training, kids get tired. Make sure you have accessible bathrooms. Some of the funniest stories we have are when we had our childcare way too far away from bathrooms, which sounds crazy that we're doing an AAC webinar, but I'm talking about bathrooms, but it's key to success. Make sure you have staff. Something that we worked really hard to do was make sure that I have a staff member in childcare that knows that child. hence the reason we do the Google form for sign up, because I have to know in advance who's coming. Again, our director is very supportive and pays my teaching assistants to come back and work this event once a year, so that I have a staff member that knows the child with the child, and then I have another staff member, and teachers don't get paid extra. They get dinner, but I have a staff member with the family, and not me. Families know me, the families know Elisa, but they want a staff member with them that is working with their child on a daily basis, that speech pathologist, that classroom teacher, those people who have intimate knowledge of the children. So the dedication of these staff to come back and do this training has made a world of difference in our success of being able to help parents learn how to use AAC in their daily lives. We always make sure that we are done by 7:30. Another piece of advice I would give everyone is we try to start dinner at 5:30 and allow families time to feed their children. So, you know, we start our first session by 6, but we try to wrap up by 7:30 because families need to go home and start their nightly routines, and they will be very upset if they get too out of whack, and then you're asking kids to be in a school environment again. So those are some of the hows to getting it done. I would say that echo what Elisa has said about handouts. In the bottom right, you can see we did a training, and each one of those blocks is an idea of how families could implement AAC at home. And it's in your handouts as well. And parents leave with that. But then the picture above is we always try to provide either a high-tech AAC device or a low-tech board so that families are touching the same items that their child has regardless of product, that they are learning the same AAC that their child's going to be bringing home with them.
And I can't stress enough the importance of pairing that parent with someone from the school, because that's an uncomfortable place for them to say, you know, you often find that you have to draw out of them what they need. Well, here at school, they have troubles with da 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 da. And then the parents will say, well, you know what? They have troubles with that at home as well. So, or I heard you say last week that he was having trouble with this. How can that? And so giving those leading questions is really important as far as getting that facilitation and having our parents feel comfortable with learning the AAC implementation part.
Yeah, and so I advanced the slides, but one of the trainings we just most recently did was a game night, and on game night we made sure that we provided the navigation task strips for parents to be able to interact, and everybody left with those, and we did very play-based to board games, but parents were able to leave probably with 15 or 16 visuals that they could take home and a list of games. Many parents were like, now I know what I can buy for my child's birthday or Christmas. So that was pretty cool.
And it's beautiful because not only is it a support for your parents and your staff, but also it's a prompt for your kids. It's a visual cue for your students who are playing these games as well.
Okay. Oh, we kind of started this, but it's topics covered.
All right. Okay. So topics covered, again, we talked about play and leisure is in there in a little bit, but basics of AAC, you know, there are some groups that we need to start with just the basics. What's the AAC system look like that their child is using? What's the layout? What is the vocabulary system that they're using? And how does the system work? Just, you know, just the nuts and bolts of the system. And then looking at types of what is core vocabulary, what's fringe vocabulary, and what's aided language, and how can that be used? So that can be one topic, or like we said, there might be a group that's right at that level, and then we might need a group that's just talking about literacy. So maybe that's a different room that they go to do some of the training and support. And so with literacy, some of the things that we talk about are just pretty simple things, you know, modeling one word on their device as you read a story, talking and reading each night if you can, modeling, as we're going to, you know, home routines is a thing as well, as far as being able to model during home routines is also an easy thing that's part of your daily activities that you do at home. And then also within the literacy, we would provide examples of read alouds. such as Saltillo's website and the YouTube channel. They have a lot of great read alouds on there that you can access, and you can just play it for your child, or it also gives you an example of how to facilitate when you're reading. So great examples either way. We talked about play and leisure and how we would set that up, and maybe having multiple rooms for the students. And maybe it would be when we did the play activities and game night for our staff, what we did is we had kind of a lower let's play cooking routines and let's do cars and rolling the ball. And then we had more cause and effect games like Pop-Up Pirate and things like that. And then we would have higher level activities that were more of, oh, what is it, Tara, when you're watching the memes and then they have to do the phrases?
Yeah, it's a Giphy.
Yeah, there we go.
Or a Jiffy, I don't know. I call it Giphy, but it's one of our favorite ways to engage students is letting them pick the type of Giphy, and then we work on all the language around whatever has happened on the screen.
And they build the sentence and talk about what the phrase might be, or they comment on it, or what do you think the guy's saying in the meme? You know, it could be something like that as well. So again, we talked about home routines are really important. We don't want to overload our parents with more to do on top of already doing the laundry and the dishes and making the meals and getting their kids bathed into their activities in the evening. So sometimes home routines is just enough, right? And so I have discovered another lady on Facebook called the AAC coach while we've all been in this lockdown of social distancing. And she's had some really great handouts as well. So check her out on Facebook. She's pretty, I like her practical one-page handouts on different topics related to home routines. Those are fun. And then also other resources that we'll share with our families. You know, the Saltillo and PRC websites have some great information that you can share with your families. Practical AAC is a great website too. We get a lot of information from Rachel Nadel, Chris Bouquet, Laura Enders. We have a lot of different sources that we might reference just depending on what the topic is. And then looking at those YouTube channels and that social media, we learn something every day from those leaders in the world of AAC from that social media a lot.
Hey, Elisa, I'm going to move on. We have about 15 minutes and we haven't even gotten to the funding stuff. So I'm going to move us on. We were going to do another poll, but how do you feel about us going ahead and skipping that for right now? Let's move on to funding. Okay. So we want to talk with you about how you get funding for AAC and how we've managed to do it. Elisa, that's yours.
All right, I put myself on mute there. All right, so funding sources, just in general, we have just your general insurance, looking at how you can do that. And we know as SLPs, that's something that we can do as far as our own evaluations and looking at that. And I've put in a link here in the slide next to insurance, and that's from the PRC website. They have a great handout, one-page handout on funding in AAC and kind of the guiding steps to that process. So take a look at that. And then in Missouri, we have what we call ATR, and that's Assistive Technology Reimbursement Program, and that's through Missouri Assistive Technology. And our school district can buy a device, and then from there, they apply for reimbursement through this AT reimbursement program. And so that's been a great resource for a lot of our individuals in the state of Missouri. It's something to look up. I'm not sure if other states have that, but it's something to maybe look into and see if that's a possibility. And this is Missouri Assistive Technology is where that comes from, and that's where we get our loans from when we do trials as well. And then looking at any other nonprofit organizations that you might have in your area. Variety Children's Charity is a national organization in Kansas City. It's called Variety KC, and so they are a huge player in our area of Kansas City as far as providing funding for any type of assistive technology that a child might need. You know, looking at the Down Syndrome Guild, Easter Seals, or maybe your local organizations such as that are in your community, the Knights of Columbus, or maybe a women's club such as Theta Sigma Phi. That might be an organization that might be able to give you some sources and some funding. And then I put another link down here. These are more national-wide funding resources that you might be able to tap into. So take a look at that if you're looking for more ways to raise some money.
Okay, so before I go on, I just pulled up questions, which I haven't been monitoring because I've been talking. But everybody's asking about handout or about our resources. They're on the last slide. I think our presentation was in the handout, so I'll have to get with Lisa. And if not, yeah, we'll post it for sure. There's a link on the last page, which will answer a lot of your questions. And then I'll try to go through a lot of these questions and answer some of them after we are done, okay?
It says that handout is Parker_Wineinger Games and More. It's a PDF that you can get. But again, like we said, within the presentation slides themselves, there's a link.
Okay, so we want to talk about Sophie's Run and tell you a little bit about it. Sophie's Run is a not-for-profit that we are a part of. It benefits students in our school district. It is run by Jim and Teresa Edwards. Jim and Teresa had a daughter who passed away who was a student of our school district. They worked for a year to get an eye gaze device. In that year, they had to go through a lot of red tape. You know, you send it to insurance, it gets kicked back. Now, this was different. This was about 13 years ago. So things have changed some. But they fought for a year. Sophie passed away, and her communication device was delivered to their house 1 week after her funeral. And on that day, Jim and Teresa decided that they wanted to start a foundation to benefit families so that no child had to wait for a communication device. And that's when they came to our school district. I remember the day we were told that they wanted to start this foundation and how excited we were to be a part of it. And it has been absolutely life-changing for the families in our school district. We have a 5K once a year, and then we have some additional fundraisers. And I'm going to advance this so you can see these slides of the fun that we have. It is a 5K. It starts in the community called Lake Wacomas, which is here in our school district. But what's happened is it's really become a community tradition. And we have school districts that compete against each other. They have running clubs now that have started, and they train. They do trainings of how to be a better runner. And then the culminating activity at the end for these schools is that these kids come and they run a 5K. All of the funding comes back to students in our school district. At this time, we have helped 147 families. We award about 20 devices a year. It is an application process that is done by the school district, but then it actually goes to the Sophie's Run board, which Elisa and I are both members. We actually have 4 or 5 people from the school district that are on the board. So it's very much a collaborative effort. And I think that that is most important. What makes it work is that we have this family that is not part of the school district that runs this organization, but we have such a collaborative relationship that it helps make it a successful program. Sophie's Run buys replacement devices, new devices. We offer trainings to families, but the devices are owned by the families, not by the school district. And I think that's key for everybody to understand.
And I think what makes it beautiful as well is because we have this collaborative effort going on is when Sophie's Run, when an application comes through, there is proof and evidence that trials have been done, that there's been training done, that when this device is delivered to the family, there's going to be follow-up with how to implement at home, and that just the ongoing collaboration that continues to happen makes it a beautiful, I guess, connection between the school and this nonprofit.
It is, and I think that what you said is really important because Elisa or I or a speech pathologist have done all the trials. Applications are done by the school district, but there is a component that the family has to do. They have to understand what they are agreeing to. And we have some families who simply choose not to go this route, that it's not for them. And that's why we have other funding sources for them as well. Let's talk a little bit about how you could have your own Sophie's Run. So we have the 50, the non-for-profit. I always forget the numbers. I'm not even gonna lie. So we have the non-for-profit, and Sophie's Run as a board is willing to provide that umbrella for any, actually be school, I was gonna say school district, but it could be any community organization to start their own run if that's what fits in your community. And if you want to have more information about how that would look in your school district, you can email Elisa or I. or you can email runsophies5k@gmail.com, and we can get more information about how that would look for you and your school district. Did I forget anything about Sophie's Run, Elisa? Okay. So I want to know, before we get off here, what other funding sources do you guys use? And then I want to answer some of these questions. Lisa, can you?
Okay, so I was going to go ahead and read some of the questions for you. So one of them, one person asked if you've ever done any of provided the parents at their home. So you had those parent activities, but have you gone into the home? And so I think they wanted to hear more about in-home.
So what I can tell you is, obviously at the early childhood level, and that's where our parent educators have come into play as well, is we're able, for that birth to 5 population, we are able to go into the home a lot if needed. We find that a lot of our families actually want to come to the school. They don't really necessarily want you in the home, but we are always more than willing to do that if they are comfortable with that. So yes, it does occur. It probably happens less as the kids get older as well, but we do find that parents are kind of like, no, I'll come to you. But yeah, it is a great experience. I have to tell you, through all of this, as far as doing things through Zoom, that's been a wonderful experience, because we have been able to do some in the moment coaching, as far as, oh my goodness, you said he just fell down and hurt his lip. Let's talk about that. Hurts. I know you guys are wanting to work on body parts when he was hurt. So being able to facilitate through that. So I'm kind of hoping actually Zoom will help us with that over time as we continue on with helping them in the home as well.
And I do go into the home and work with families per their request. During COVID-19, I've been to several homes because devices have broken and I had to go in and get repairs and do backup stuff and all that business. But what happened in the meantime is I was able to provide some coaching and training. So yes, we do go into the homes when we are asked.
Okay. Any suggestions when you have tried these things, but the special ed teachers and principal are resistant because those teachers expressed that they will control when the student communicates and they know best?
Well, I would bring out my Communication Bill of Rights and probably start with educating on some foundational level that it is a right to be able to communicate. And the Communication Bill of Rights are very poetic in stating what those are and sharing those with those principals. But there are obstacles that happen and staff are resistant. I think it takes finding one staff member that you can work with, and one place at a time. I'm not trying to conquer an entire building, but try to take on either a classroom event, a therapy setting, one place, and sharing videos of a child's success.
Yeah,
what do you say, Elisa?
Even at the individual level, but at a building level, find that one person that's interested in learning more and helping them facilitate that. And once there's some success with that individual or that SLP or that classroom teacher, things start to build. And I'm not gonna lie, we still have staff that are just not comfortable and they just aren't going to use it. But it's our job to just continue to inspire and encourage and provide the input and provide the research and the resources to go along with that. So it's a little bit more about persistence on our part and just continuing to express how important this is. And then again, at some point, having your administration support that as well, and knowing that's a part of their IEP. It's a part of what we're supposed to be providing by law to our students. And if you need to go there, you need to go there. So that hopefully you don't have to, but we want to keep it as encouraging as we can.
Okay, next question. How do you involve special education staff who don't work with students using AAC devices, such as a SLD or EBD?
Well, for me, in the K-12 setting, we try really hard when we plan our PD, and I just had to get really involved in planning PD during this time of the year, planning for next year. I started initiating those meetings to get very involved. We have separated our self-contained teachers and our SLD and behavior situations, because sometimes the trainings aren't appropriate. People need different levels. So I will let Elisa take the AAC group, and then I have a whole lot of technology for SLD and behavior that I need to do training on. We divide it up that way. And we bring in our other speech pathologists who are amazing at AAC and let them do some presentations. And I take staff and we do other trainings with them. Then there are times where we have students who are making so much success because they have had AAC now for 10 years. We have kids, you guys, who are in those resource settings with their AAC, and I have to get the resource teachers trained. So it has evolved, and my resource teachers have to come. And honestly, it's a personalized list of teachers and who has what kids and who needs what training for next year.
Mm-hmm.
And if they need the training, we move them across the aisle.
Right. And so that might be also us going into that elementary building, especially if, we have a couple of kids moving on next year that are going regular education. They will be in their home schools, and it's a building that hasn't had AAC before, or it's a brand new staff member or something like that. So Tara and I will take that time to do some training just for that staff about, here are your incoming kids, and here are the things you're going to need to know about this kid and where they are and their vocabulary and what you can do and what their likes are and those kind of things. So we'll try to tailor those types of situations for those individual students and staff as well.
Okay. So this person, I work in very rural area on the big island of Hawaii. Cool. And there are not a lot of opportunities for funding. So the question is, how willing are insurance companies to pay for these devices, and how hard is it for parents, the paperwork for the parents to fill out?
Elisa, I'm gonna let you take it.
Well, and I'm going to be real honest with you. I look to, if I'm going through a Saltillo or PRC, I'm looking for those representatives in those areas to help me with that funding application. But like I said, if you look back at that link, if you go to the PRC website, you can find some information on funding, and it'll give you the steps on what you need to do. And then just call up some of those representatives for those, if it's a specific device that you're looking at. You can also, the other piece of that is if they're wanting to use their insurance, if you as an SLP are not comfortable in making those recommendations, looking for an ATP certified place, someone who has the certification to do assistive technology assessments. And then we have one of those in Kansas City that we use quite a bit. And our families will, they're on the medical side, the doctors will say, you need to go to Ability KC and have this evaluation done, and then they'll recommend a device. And so that organization will help with the funding of whatever insurance form that they have. So I kind of don't do a lot with it, but yet I can point them in the right direction. Or again, if I'm using a specific organization such as Saltillo, I can go through that application process as an SLP.
Okay, so we are at the top of the hour, at the end of the hour, and I have uploaded the PowerPoint PDF up to the handouts section. So everyone should be able to get that, plus it'll come in the follow-up email for that.
And I would say that the last slide in that PowerPoint has a link to our Google Drive, and we made a folder for everybody that is in view only mode, and so you can copy whatever you would like.
And that would be the end of our presentation. So thank you so much to everyone who's here. Thank you, Elisa and Tara. It was really great.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us.
As a reminder, if you will submit those ASHA forms within 15 days and include the title of the presentation and today's date, and you will be sending that to info@printrom.com.